What's your minimum specification?
Humans, by our very nature, we can bond with anything. We'll give things names, we'll give technology names, and we'll look after it. And if it's a pet, we'll feed it and we'll love it. To the point where with cars, people name cars. We've got Miles the Micra or Mr. T or what have you. Even my mother called her little car Daisy, and she decked it out with black and white patches all over. And then it got me thinking, I've actually been naming my PCs for years. So what's in a name, you may ask? A rose by any name would smell just as sweet. Now, some of us give names to our technology because we want to anthropomorphize them. We want to make it feel like they're part of our environment. We want to be able to talk about it easily. You don't just, if you need to monitor something on a network, you don't just say, oh, go look at 192.168.0.77. You say go deal with Happy, or go access the NAS. Well, my NAS is called Catzilla, for example. Now, naming PCs isn't necessarily anything new. Large institutions have had it for quite a while. Supercomputers, for example, all have specific names. And if we have a look through, we've got number one on the supercomputer is Summit. We have Sierra, we have Frontera, we have Pisdaint, we have Trinity. Few others, Subame, Theta, Marconi. All these names are taken from different sources. And it's either, what the machine is made out of, where it is, who's designing it. Names can come from anywhere, and this is how we end up referring to them. So that's supercomputers, but what about PCs? So as I said, I've been calling my PCs names throughout the years, from at least 2004, if not before. And a few of you who read my Twitter account may have noticed that I've actually gone through some of my PCs, all the hardware recently. That is actually in preparation for this video. So in terms of my history, in 2004, I went to University of Hull, where my family purchased me a brand new XP 2400M AMD laptop, which became my mainstay for at least the first year. And I just called it Laptop 1. That's not very imaginative, I know. My first actual PC was a Core 2 Duo, an E6400 system with an MSI 975X motherboard. At the time, I was playing Counter-Strike 1.5 over the dormitory network. We had, 150 people in the dorm in that sort of isolated network. The university had 100 megabit download speed, which was to the internet, which for 2004 was actually pretty awesome. Unfortunately, they blocked almost everything, including Steam. But gaming inside the network actually worked pretty well. Now, at the time, we didn't have LEDs, right? There was no such thing as an RGB gaming PC. What we had was cold cathodes and UV reactive cabling, and I went a bit crazy. This is that PC. I think I've actually got like an X500T XT inside. One of those really old ATI graphics cards, and you can see cabling's a mess. I had a cheap power supply that's probably 300 watt or so. ID hard drives. That must have been an Arctic freezer type cooler or something inside. There was no coordination. I just wanted it to be lit up. I think I even had some cold cathodes at one point connected to a sound sensor. So when I played music on my speakers, the lights would flash. And give everybody seizures. And I used this machine. This must have been a slight update machine. At a LAN party, this is me probably back in about 2006 when we were playing Battlefield 2 off of a CD for clans. And I think I upgraded to an X1900 XT by then. And this system, for some reason, whatever reason I forget, I called Halberd. So my next system was a Core i7-920. This was my foray into high-end desktop. I wasn't interested in P55. And I bought an ASRock X58 motherboard. Gigabyte X58 motherboard. Because I actually used it in my first review ever for a Nantec back in 2010. I didn't review that board. I reviewed an ASRock X58 Extreme 3, which I actually still have just over there. And I used the Gigabyte in comparison. And now back then I equipped it with HD 5850, and it was an i7-920 at 2.6 gigahertz. I think I overclocked it to somewhere near 4 gigahertz. And so as a result, I called it Hellfire because it was super fast compared to everything that all my peers were using at the time. Around this time, I had a backup system, which I outfitted with an AMD X2 5050E, one of their energy efficient processors. And I called this system Dutchie, because the processor was called 5050, and splitting the bill in an evening, or splitting the bill between two, is you going 5050 is called going Dutch. So that's why I called it Dutchie. That CPU ended up being part of a system that I used for my PhD, and I put in like a GTX 460 or something, and that ran a lot of my CUDA code at the time. As for laptops, as I said, I mentioned I had, this sort of laptop one that wasn't really named anything. My next laptop was this, which, if you've seen some of my videos before, you've seen it in there. This is an Acer Ferrari 1. That was just called Ferrari. That wasn't anything interesting. My next system is this. This is a Dell M4400. Geez, it weighs at least 7 pounds. It's got the sheet battery. Behind that, it's got the 9-cell battery. I think I had a 6-cell battery. And this ended up being my first working PC when I started in journalism. Oof. And inside that has a Core 2 Duo mobile chip with a Quadro, an NVIDIA Quadro FX 770, I think. Back in the old naming style. So that system I actually called Buslane, and there is a reason for this. That system is the M4400. Now, the M4 in the UK is a famous road for having a bus lane. So M4400, M4, Buslane. So that system, even with all the batteries, kind of sucked. The best thing about it actually was it had a 1900 by 1200 screen. And I wish more laptops had it these days. But after that, I moved on to this fancy system, and you can see it shining in the light here. This is the ZenBook Infinity, Asus's first ZenBook Infinity. So that's using a i7-4558U. So this is when Intel started introducing the Iris graphics. I pretty much paid top dollar for that. It was probably about £1,400, and ultra thin meant I could actually go to trade shows and use it all day. The only problem I had was that the edge was a little bit sharp, so when putting your wrists on, you tended to get it looked like you were essentially cutting your wrists there. That one, because it's a ZenBook, and it's about the same time that Facebook was kind of becoming more and more popular, I called it Bookface. Yeah, that's about as unimaginative as you get. At some point during all of this, I had an i7-2600K system. I can't actually remember if I ever gave that a name. I remember overclocking it to 5.3 gigahertz for overclocking competitions. But I don't think I actually used it as a main PC at all. In terms of mini PCs, I've shown pictures of my small form factor, Nook style PCs. I used a Brix as my HTPC for a while. So the unit brand is called Brix, BRIX, after Colin Brix, who was one of the VPs of marketing at Gigabyte headquarters at the time. I called my one a Brix, BRICKS, because it's a Brix. I haven't actually named any other of my HTPCs after that. So moving back to desktops, after my i7-920, I wanted to stick with high-end desktops, so I built an i7-3930K system. And at the time, I was running two HD 7000 series cards in Crossfire. I think I'd maxed out the memory inside and put it in one of these, Thermaltake armor or massive cases. I had 3 hard drives in it at the time. I must have put in SSDs over time because it was around that kind of time when SSDs were coming into easier to use. And I called that one Excess. excess because there was a lot going on inside and it was a pretty expensive high-end system, but also the motherboard was a Gigabyte X79S UD5 Wi-Fi. So because the motherboard had XS in the name, I called it my system XS. After that, as one of the big reviews that I did, I got hold of one of these dual socket EVGA SR2 motherboards. I filled that with, at the time I was borrowing 2 8-core Xeon CPUs. I filled that full of memory, and then I put in 4 HD 7970 graphics cards and put it all in a Rosewell armor case. Had a Rosewell 1600 watt power supply, and oh, sorry, this is one of the old systems again with a cathode ray tube. So this is the beast. This was a massive system. I essentially tried to say, well, if you had the best of everything, here's the gaming performance you get. I don't know, maybe I'm not so good with the cable management these days. I managed to get a lot of it around the back, but all the PCIe stuff still had to go around the front. And this board had a 6-pin PCIe on the corner, just by the socket on the left, which was really hard to arrange. Unfortunately, I couldn't keep those CPUs for long. They had to go back, and I ended up making a loss on the motherboard. I think I purchased it for £300, and I had to sell it for $250. Though that was a fun system to have. Currently now I have this system, and this actually looks kind of bland as it is. Though this is a white Corsair 760T system, Corsair X 1200i power supply, an Asus X99WS 10 gig motherboard. I got 64 gigabytes of G.Skill memory in there. As you see, liquid cooling. There's a gigabyte GTX 1080. I actually have 2 PCIe SSDs in here. One's a U.2, one's actually PCIe, and a few mechanical hard drives in, and 4 1TB SSDs. This system is called Coriolis. Now, Coriolis was just because that's a sort of science I was watching in my spare time. And, I had options to, call it White something, White Knight or what have you. But I thought Coriolis was a bit different. And that's actually been my main system for at least 3 years now. People keep asking, I have friends who keep asking me when I'm going to update. Should I go Ryzen or Threadripper? I used this motherboard originally because I had so many SATA drives, and this had 10 SATA ports in. Plus, I wanted 10 gig Ethernet on the back. Even though I didn't have a 10 gig switch at the time, I do now. But where my next system is going to go, I'm not sure. I actually recently updated Windows from 1609 to something more recent, and it's actually stopped blue screening a lot now. So I don't actually know when I'm going to update it. I do like the look of the good 32-core Threadrippers. That might be in the future, depending on what my storage situation is going to be. Interestingly enough, while I've named PCs over the years, I've never actually named smartphones. I'm currently recording to you on a Huawei P30 Pro. I've used BlackBerry Key 2 LE. I've used LG V30 over the years, Samsung Galaxy S2, HTC One Max, but I've never actually given them names. So I'm wondering whether it's a thing where, big PCs, big financial investment like that, I name because, that just brings it closer, validates what I've spent on the system, whereas smartphones, perhaps not so much. So I wondered if this was a thing that a lot of people do, and I actually reached out to a few of my friends to record some short videos for me for this coverage. Some of them whom you may recognize as having a lot bigger YouTube channels than mine. Interesting enough, they kind of split into 3 categories. One category is I don't name anything. Unfortunately, none of those people wanted to make a video. Then another section of I name everything that's important server-wise. And then a third of, I name all my main, PCs and stuff. So hope you enjoyed their sections. So take it away.
So I usually don't name tech. However, there is an exception, and that is for some of our servers.
So for example, our main server right here is named Zeppelin, which is a 150 terabyte unit, which is what we use for sort of medium speed storage. We also have Starship, which is a 25 terabyte SSD storage, which we actually edit off of. And then all the way back up here, we also have a 70 terabyte NAS, which is our slowest storage, and that is called Canoe.
My Linux machine that's on wheels historically has been named Grunt because I grunt when I have to carry it because it's in a large case and has wheels and is very heavy. So I think we're on Grunt the 5th at this point. The original Grunt was a dual slot 1. That was a nice machine.
My first Vishera PC that I built, I called Brian because of that movie with 2 Brians in it that was called FX. I built a Lano PC that I called Apu. And I currently have a PC named Corey because of all the cores. My Wi-Fi network names are Philip J Wi-Fi and Where the Wild Pings Are.
Fun fact, every server that I have ever configured, be it at work here or at home, is named after a place that I have lived or worked. So I've got Delta, Ladner, Albion, Wannick, Ruskin. I've got Clover Server, that's named for Cloverdale, which is actually where our office is based out of. I've had quite a few people ask me, what's up with the names of your servers? Well, there you have it.
Well, the truth is, I love to name my devices and technology, and there's always a bit of a hidden meaning. Sometimes it's more obvious. My home Wi-Fi network is Marconi, for example. Other times less so. For example, I bought an eMag workstation, just like the one Ian reviewed recently. I named it Greg, after Greg Favor, the lead microarchitect of the processor inside. Similarly, my 40th anniversary 8086K Intel system is named Stephen, after Stephen Morse.
I had a PC named Colin because Gigabyte named one of their MiniPCs after Colin Bricks. So every time my PC would screw up, I'd be like, oh, Colin!
So I've been trying to think of a name for my in-progress workstation / editing build that features metal tubing and a lot of chrome accents, and the name I came up with was Chrometheus. Chrome, obviously, because there's a lot of chrome finishes and accents in the build, but it also references Prometheus, the Greek god who was tasked with the creation of man. So since this is a build that's primarily going to be used for content creation, I thought it was a fun play on words that made sense to me. Also, the fact that this is kind of a godlike build with a 3970X and an RTX 2080 Ti felt like a pretty good tie-in. I really like the name, so I'm sticking with it, even though the internet's a little disappointed. Their first pick was Shiny McShinyface.
So for my iPhones, I used to go with the names of the X-Men. So for example, the iPhone 8, iPhone 8 Plus, and iPhone 10 were Siren, Banshee, and Shadowcat. And the iPhone 11 was binary because 2 cameras, and that meant the iPhone 11 Pro had to be Warbird, and the iPhone 11 Pro Max had to be Marvel. For the iPads, the 2018 iPad Pro was Thanos, and now the 2021 is Titan.
So a big thanks to everyone who contributed to this video. It's interesting to hear the sorts of names that all these people give their systems. And this is where I actually want some audience participation from everyone. There are YouTubers out there who will rate your builds. I'm not necessarily interested in that. What I want to do is I want to rate the name you give to your system. So I don't care if your system's caked in dust, whether it's full of cockroaches, or whether your parents have thrown it down the stairs. True thing that happened to my mate Streamcast. What I'd like you guys to do is on Twitter, use the hashtag RateMyPotato. I'm deadly serious on this. RateMyPotato, use your name, name of your machine, and why it's called it, and if you do, have a picture. And what I'll do is I'll create a video of all the fun ones that people send in. Now, I call this channel TechTechPotato, and the final machine name I'll give you is this. This is truly a potato. This is Intel's 10th gen Cannon Lake i3-8121U. The chip they'd rather forget. This is one true potato. 3 hours battery life. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you on the hashtag RateMyPotato.